So for instance, when people think about scaling, they think, oh, I've got to create this huge program. I've got to reach like a high volume of people. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I'm not saying it's impossible. And I'm definitely not saying if that's what you want to do and your heart is set on having a huge community and you want to have a huge audience, go for it. But to me, a saner perspective is to say, coming from that space of I'm helping a very, very specific person, how can I drive even more value to that person? So if I think of every person who comes into my business more as a client than a customer, even if I don't, or I should say as a member of my community versus just a customer that's passing through, that is your scalable strategy, is thinking, how can I keep that same person in my world for longer by giving them more value and then extending them to different tiers of.
Okay, welcome fellow entrepreneurs and goal getters to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelley Beveridge, and my guest today, Helen Hunter Mackenzie. And I'm excited to have her on. I was just saying this to her in full transparency. I'm really going to be a student today, learning from her around the topic we're going to be talking about. It's something I'm in a learning curve with my business. We're going to be discussing about how to position oneself in the online marketplace and how to become visible by carving out your specific niche. And Helen's on today. She's calling in from Arizona, and she's a business growth strategist and positioning expert. She specializes in helping entrepreneurs build and scale a sustainable, soul-driven, I love that, soul-driven 6- and 7-figure businesses. She has over 20 years of experience in the healthcare, startups, and entrepreneurship world. She has founded her own coaching consultancy, and she's helped grow digital copywriting and design agencies to thrive. And so she really is an expert in this topic, and I'm just excited to pick her brain and have a conversation. And just, Helen, welcome to my podcast, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for the warm welcome. I'm excited to have this conversation.
I love it. Okay, great. And I want to start off with what might seem like a simple, silly question, yet I'm just curious. We're going to be talking about our positioning ourselves in the online market space. And I just think it's so relative because nowadays, obviously, so much entrepreneurship to create visibility is using social media, is online. And my first question is really simple. It's, what does it mean by positioning yourself in the online marketplace? What does that even mean to think of doing that and wanting to do that?
That's a great question, because when I think about how people view the online marketplace, I think when people talk about things like online business, I see it like the online world is like it's your marketing channel. It's not, people don't have online businesses. They have businesses and then they reach people online. It's one of many ways to reach your customer. But of course, the online marketplace, the online environment is so incredibly crowded. And as we all know, I'm not saying anything new or groundbreaking by saying we're living in this oversaturated environment online, but being able to position yourself uniquely online, when you think about how your behavior as a consumer or just a human being in the online space is different than your behavior when you walk out your door and go to the grocery store or something like that. It's so like scroll, 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 scroll. Like we're living in a society now where just everything is, if you don't catch people's attention in 3 seconds, you've lost them. So that unique positioning, it's not about, so positioning is not so much about, and I'm going a little bit further than your question, but positioning is not so much about saying, I'm the X who does Y, but it's about somebody seeing, as they're doing that endless scrolling, that really quick scrolling, somebody seeing, oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That totally interests me. That's exactly what I need. And that is really difficult to do we're recording this in 2024, but in 2025 and beyond, it's really difficult to establish that in people's minds because they're just, again, we all are. We're scrolling. I look at cat videos on Instagram, like fun or humorous things, and things that really catch my eye from a business sense really have to be so finely tuned to something very specific that I'm looking for me to even be interested in clicking over in the middle of my cat videos. Does that make sense?
Totally mix. And I love your share, right? Because it's just so true. And I like how you talked about that though, that it's not that we have online businesses, it's that we're positioning ourselves through it being a marketing channel. That is actually even just a different perspective on how to look at it. And then how to stand out and be unique so that we catch people's attention. And so I want to have a follow-up question then, because you talked about it's very crowded on social media. And so what are some things entrepreneurs can start to do to stand out in this crowded market space?
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the most important things, this is something I'm really hammering home with my clients right now, is this is really recent too. Is so if someone were to look at my past social media feed, they would not see this. That's why I'm saying this is like a recent thing. We're all having to change. Like 2024 was a big year of change. And I think all of it came from people coming online due to COVID and all of that stuff. But a really important thing that again I'm hammering home with clients right now is like authority versus being somebody who has that sort of influencer personality. So what I'm talking about very specifically is like influencer personality is that thing that we've all been trained on, which is like the know and trust factor, right? It's saying, here, let me give you a window into my world. This is what I'm all about. These are the things that I like. So, for instance, the thing you might see in my past feed would be like pictures of my cats, which I love my cats and my cats are great. And I'm not saying don't do that at all. Shifting from that to authority based content, which is here is how I can help you. Here is how I am helping current clients. Here's the kinds of results that they're getting. Here's the kind of, again, very specific things that I'm doing. So, for instance, even if it's just I'm sharing like my free opt in content, it's not just it's nice to have and it's this wonderful thing. And I'm such a wonderful person. Don't you want to join my world because I'm so great? It's these are the results you're going to get when you take the time to download this because it's not just people's attention that is fractured, it's their time as well. And people are feeling overwhelmed, even just giving their email address for things. I'm sure you felt this yourself, right? Is that's free, but do I even want to take the time? Or that's $7. The really low tier offers are surging the marketplace. Okay, it's only $7, but do I want to spend the time like doing that even for $7? So it's really giving these very specific and when I say like authority, it's like establishing yourself as the authority in this one very specific thing. And it doesn't have to be one specific thing for your entire business, but it needs to be like for this piece of content. What is that one specific thing that this is going to help me achieve? And how can I show up as the authority in that one specific thing? That's the kind of thing that's gonna catch people's attention versus for example, I think there's memes out there that are about this too, but I definitely had noticed this myself. I like to cook, and sometimes I look up recipes online, and it's reached this point where you're just like, can you not give me the history of cheese in France and why, when you took that trip to France and you learned all about the blah, blah, blah? I just want the ingredients and the recipe. And you're like scrolling past and it's taking forever for all the pictures to load, right? So the difference is that is the old style influencer blogger kind of content. And we are really needing to move away from that. Like people need to understand that kind of stuff is not catching people's attention. Again, not to say don't ever, ever, ever do it. And so drawing my line in the sand is yes, I am going to share photos of my cats from time to time still. But again, that's not the main thrust of my brand. And people are not going to say, oh, I really like that. It's not that they're going to say, I don't like that person's personality. People still gravitate towards who you are as a human being, but they're not so much going to say, oh, that's great. She's a cat lover like me. Let me sign up for her free opt in. Like, literally, that has nothing to do with people's attention and their time and their ability to want to invest their attention and their time in you. So, that to me is a huge, huge distinction for this next year and beyond.
Oh my gosh, such a brilliant answer. And once again, like I'm just having a lot of awareness and thinking as you're speaking. because I post so many pictures about my dog, right? And it's, yep, how am I actually the authority? And I just created an opt-in and I'm like, okay, I've never created an opt-in before and I'm wanting to have people choose it so that I can give them value and at the same time build my email subscription. Yet why would they want to opt in? And I love how you shared too. Think about yourself. Why do you choose to give your email to somebody else? And so I'm just sitting here in reflection. Why would I choose to do that? Because it's so true. The time and the investment of attention to give towards something isn't as big as it used to be. And so people really have that. It's gotta matter for me to be able to even give you my email. I'm not just going to give it away freely. And that's such good advice going from influencer to authority and still wanting to build trust and credibility, but it's more, how are we the authority? And so I'm curious because I think this could lead us into the topic of your niche, because if I'm wanting to show up in the authority of my business and my brand and what my offering and my services are. So let's talk about carving out your niche, because I think before we could show up as the authority in something, we have to have certainty around what we're the authority in, right? And so can you share, I think, like the what, why, and how of carving out your niche? So what is a niche, right? Why is it important? And then what are some tips on starting to discover what that is for ourselves in business and with our brand?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start obviously with what is a niche, and it's much more specific, I think, than what people. So typically, people think of the niche as I serve women entrepreneurs from ages 35 to 65 who are like creative and soul led kind of thing, and that's fine. That's a good start. For instance, that like for sure that's part of my market. It's getting really, really specific so that you're thinking about. I'm going to give an example that's outside of that because I find that in this sort of like online space, it can get really easy to just keep gravitating towards that almost that like ubiquitous, homogenous kind of thing. The example that I've given recently, it's silly, but it's like literally thinking about there's a spot in my house that has like a little carpet thing that one of my cats has it's almost like pica. So I'm talking about my cats here, but I'm doing it for a reason. He likes to chew things and he just wants to chew that one spot of carpet again and again. So I have to cover it with things. I have to get all creative. Like I cannot leave it at night, for instance. I have to pile heavy stuff on top of it, or I will come out in the morning and he's ripped everything up and there's like big shreds of carpet and I have to cut a new piece out and lay it. So the reason I'm saying all of that is like a true niche is like somebody who in my neighborhood who can handle issues with your flooring or your carpet or whatever. Probably flooring is a bigger market than just carpet, but specifically for pets who are destroying your flooring. I specialize in, let's say somebody had a special kind of tape or tacking or something that holds the carpet down and is impervious to pets who like to, because I've got a cat, dogs like to chew up carpet and stuff like that too. So somebody who can specifically catch my eye, if I get a flyer in the mail that says, are your pets destroying your flooring? We specialize in, we have these special blah, blah, blahs. And again, I'm not a flooring expert, so it's not like I'm saying there maybe something like that exists. I have not received the flyer yet, but that's the kind of thing that's going to catch my attention a lot more than just, do you need new carpeting or do you need your new flooring in your home? So first of all, that is it. Like a niche is something that it's just for this kind of person, for this very specific problem that they have. And so that carpet person, the reason we resist doing that, so why is it important, is because we think I've got to appeal to everybody, because if I narrow my flooring services down to pet owners, oh my gosh, I'm eliminating whatever percentage of the population in my local neighborhood. But the truth is, if you're sending out a flyer that just says, we do flooring, all like I'm going to take it to the sort of extreme, but it's like you're eliminating 100% of your market by doing that because you're just blending into the sea of sameness. So why is it important? Because
Yeah.
if you look at the data, there is a significant percentage of your market that are pet owners, that their pets do chew up their flooring. So now you're capturing 100%. Let's say the market is 50% or even 30%. You're capturing now 100% of that 30% market, right? Now you're the only person who is solving that problem for this population of people. Now, of course, if we take that out to the online marketplace, you've got a whole different ball game. It's not just you're limited to those local people, which is great. But again, the online marketplace is absolutely huge. So if you're targeting, let's say, advertising on Facebook and you're just targeting every woman entrepreneur from the age of 35 to 65 who's like creative and follows people like Marie Forleo and blah, 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 like that kind of thing. And you're not drilling down to, they have something very, very specific that they're trying to solve. You're losing, again, you're like losing 100% of the people that you're not, whose attention you're not capturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then the how, I just wanna make sure I'm like, what, why, and how. How to do it is to determine. So I think people need to challenge themselves to drill down. So for years, people have been trying to think almost, what am I the best at? And the answer again comes down to, what am I the best at for a very specific person, for a very specific need, and to courageously claim that specific piece of the market for yourself and say, so for instance, using that flooring example again, it's not like you're never going to attract people who aren't pet owners. Somebody might get your flyer and still be like, they also do flooring. And that can be the afterthought too. Like, we also do this other stuff, but you have to be courageous enough to say, this is what I help people with. And then shutting the door on other people, like being able to say, so I will say, sorry, I'm just riffing here, but I will say the other thing is to become courageous about that is to be able to like say, who can I help the most? So a question that I have been posing to clients recently too is, if you could only get paid after you got results for somebody, what would be the specific work that you would do? Because, and who would that person need to be? Because then you're going to get the highest level of results with the people that you work with. And I, by the way, like some of my positioning is only working with people who are in the transformational field. So my best clients are not the people who do flooring. So if I'm doing marketing and positioning and messaging for people, I'm not necessarily working with product-based entrepreneurs. My niche is transformational entrepreneurs, because the marketing and selling process is different for transformation. And so I know I can help people, and they also have to have other characteristics as well. So it's really narrowing down. Again, if I could only get paid after I helped somebody get results, what would that person need to bring to the table? What kind of work specifically would we do together? And those are ways you can get closer to that answer, versus then again, looking at the entire industry of people that you could potentially help, but you're not necessarily going to get the
Mhm.
best results out of.
Yeah, no, so great. I'm just sitting here taking notes, right? And I love how you broke that down. And I love your question, because I was going to say, what kind of questions can we ask ourselves? And I like that question. If you could only get paid after you worked with someone for whatever it is that you're servicing them for, what would that look like? That helps start to reframe it in my mindset. And you use this word courageous. And I do believe it does take courage to be willing to claim our niche and then lean into it and speak about it and speak that messaging. And when it comes to the mindset side of this, what would you say are some mindset shifts that's going to support entrepreneurs? Because I know I've gone through the exact process you're talking about, and I coach other women entrepreneurs, and I see them going through this process of wanting to start wide, and they help everybody and service everybody. And then they start to realize that's not effective, just as you've described, and they start to narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down. Yet it is a process, I find, for a lot of women, because there's this fear of losing out, missing out on other people, maybe not making enough money, not being able to service everybody. I just want to help everybody. And so, what do you think are some mindset shifts that would serve some people to realize, to embrace as you start to niche down?
Yeah, that is such a great, great question. And I am super into not just the mindset piece of things, but the energetic piece and kind of your entire, I would say, like the spiritual aspect of things. So there's a couple of layers to this. And one is that spiritual aspect to saying, okay, you've got to, whatever it may be, like I have a special practice that I do that I'm actually just, by the time this, by the time people are listening to this, it will be up and out there for people in the world, but it's called the Daily 8. And it's something that I've been doing myself and I do with my clients, which is just 8 principles that I go through every single day and affirm to myself, these are the spiritual principles. So whatever it is, whether you do something like that or you have your own spiritual practice, I genuinely believe that, as unsexy as it sounds, it's like consistently coming to a spiritual practice that allows you to have trust in the universe or God or source or whatever it is that your personal philosophy and beliefs. First of all, the key. You have to find, to me, every single, like, I don't want to say successful entrepreneur in terms of like just the world's idea of success, but people who are fulfilled, people who are getting the results they want out of their business and out of life and getting results with their clients and just feeling a sense of like stuff is working for me. Everyone like that has some kind of trust in life, trust in the universe, again, whatever you want to call it. So that's the deep spiritual piece of that. And then the other piece that I am super passionate about is just like logic. It's like just critical thinking. Think about most people who are afraid to niche really tightly are not doing that well in their business anyway. So there it's that, like that person who says, "Oh, I'm going to cut out X number percentage of the people in my local neighborhood if I say I'm only for pet owners." Yes, but right now you're literally speaking to none of those people. So it's just thinking, it's almost the question I ask myself that I think it comes from like acceptance and commitment therapy even, is just like, how is this approach already working for you? If you have this mindset and you're looking at your life through this lens, how is that, like, how likely is it to work out well if you've already been doing it like this? So if your mindset has been, oh, I don't want to cut out all these people, and yet your marketing is not working, your messaging is not working, you're not attracting the right people, you're not attracting enough people, you're not attracting any people, how likely is it that using that same mindset is going to work in the future? It doesn't really make logical sense, and we just don't. And by the way, I'm not saying that like in a judgmental way at all. It's just that the human mind for all of us tends to just want to go in the same pattern again and again. And so it's just pausing and stopping to take a look at like my thinking and thinking metacognition, thinking about my thinking. Does this actually make sense? And so what if, so it's almost, okay, what if I just, so the second part of this, I think, is like treating things as an experiment. Like in the startup world, if you're bringing new technology to market, you've got to understand that you got to put it out there first and see how it lands with people, that you can't get everything perfect behind the scenes. So then it's, okay, let me treat this like an experiment, put it out there, get really tight on my messaging, get super like laser focused on this is the kind of person, and see how that lands. What if I just try that versus sitting here in my fear and saying, oh no, I'm going to, like, what is the risk? At this point, things aren't going that anyway. So just give it a try. And which sounds so basic, but
Yeah.
these are the things we don't really think about because the human mind just wants to keep thinking the same way it always has, which I totally get. Mine does too, which again is why I have like structured practices to get me out of that. But I think, again, basic as it sounds, unsexy as it sounds, that's the key.
Hello, everybody. Hopping on to share with you, being that it is the beginning of the new year, that what a great time to really take a look and reassess and reevaluate where we're at in our life, both personally and professionally, and gaining clarity around the things that we say that we want. And the thing I always like to say is, if you don't know what you want, what are the chances of getting it? And so I have created a online course that I want to make accessible to everybody, called the Success Achievement Blueprint, Becoming a Great Goal Achiever. And it will guide you in getting clear on your vision and your values and aligning both of those to goals and intentions and things that you really have a heart's desire for and are internally inspired to be in action towards. It will set you up to win, to not only set goals, yet learn how to achieve them, because that really is why we set goals in the first place, right? Gives us direction towards the things that we desire so we can constantly work on attracting and manifesting and creating more things in our life to become and live an abundant life. And obviously, a big part of that is who is important for you to become along that journey. And so the course helps you set goals. It helps you learn what you need to do to implement and achieve the goals, how to create your schedule around your values and the things that really matter to you. So you actually free up mental time and mental clutter and actual time. And it will really just give you the tools and the awareness tools, the mindset tools, and the business tools and the actual tools just to support you in getting your goals and staying the course. And I like to say what my mentor always used to say and tell me is that success is forward progress towards your worthy goals. And that's really why I designed this course. And so look in the show notes, there's a link for you to access it. It is years and years and years of experience that I have had for myself investing in courses and classes and actually being out in life, setting goals and achieving goals and what I've went through. And so there's a lot of value jam-packed into this course, and I'm offering it at 67 Canadian dollars. And the reason why it's at such a low price is not because of the content or the value. It's because I truly have a desire to support people in knowing what they want and where they're going and by when and why, so that you can step into that and become the best version of yourself to achieve it. And that really is a big mission in my life. So I want to make this course available to everybody. And the last thing I want to share is I actually created this course a few years ago during COVID while I was in lockdown in South Africa. I couldn't leave the house. I was working on my own business and I thought, what else can I do? And so I created this course in this little corner in the room that I was in because I didn't actually have Wi-Fi. I had to borrow my neighbors and I was stuck in the country. We couldn't leave. We couldn't fly out. We weren't allowed to leave the apartment. And I used that time to take a lot of my knowledge and understanding around setting and achieving goals. And I channeled it into a course. And I now am in a space in my life where I want to share it and promote it and have it available to you. So please check it out. Even if you know how to set goals, it's nice to have somebody guide you through and get really crystal clear on what are you focusing on this year with some new tools in your tool belt to accelerate that growth and attract more of what you deserve into your life. And so just thank you so much. And that is my gift to you, $67. Check it out below. And I hope that I can just be a part of your journey in a positive way. And best of luck to you for the year of 2025. No, it's so great. I love that you talk about that. I love how you shared too that like most successful people, if not all successful people, have some level of trust in something, right? And if that's not so true. And as you're speaking, I'm just sitting here thinking too, like, yeah, as entrepreneurs, it really is about being willing to do things differently and embrace change and be coachable, right? And if something isn't working, being willing to push pause and say, hey, what's going on here? What's working? What can improve? And like you said, narrow down your niche, get clear on your messaging, and just try it, right? There's nothing to lose and a lot to gain. And so I'm curious. I want to segue, like you just shared so many great things. And I want to segue back to, like, for lack of better words, the technical aspect of this. So let's say you are open to it and you have discovered your niche and you've spent some time figuring what that is, and you're excited now to speak your message into the online market. How do we know which platform to use? Like, how do we know where to go to start actually sharing our message and what kind of content to put out there?
Yeah, wow. Okay, so that's a great question and it's a big question. And I think so first of all, I think that I'm not the first person to say this is to the platform or two and don't try to do all of them. But like I said, not the only one saying it, but I would have to say it as well. One of the things that I think trips us up is that we think I've got to be everywhere. And I think just, yeah, for me, it's like Facebook and Instagram, and it's gravitating much more towards Instagram, just because Facebook is, I don't know, the algorithm is like not as friendly as it used to be, at least for me. So it's looking at your own, so it's asking yourself, first of all, if I'm only going to pick one or two, and honestly, one is fine. It doesn't even have to be two. It could just be like, pick one platform. I'm going to master Instagram or I'm going to master TikTok. I know a lot of people are getting on there. I haven't really done that myself yet. So then it's asking yourself, for instance, what I just shared about, say, Facebook is, I don't really feel like it's showing my posts to people like it used to. It's asking yourself why. Why are you gravitating towards which platform you're gravitating towards? And then it's saying, yeah, what are the results that I feel that I get when I do something on this platform? How do I feel? when I do something on this platform, and this is the sort of intangible thing, but I think it's so important to only choose things that you actually feel good about, that feel exciting and fun to you. Like, I like being on Instagram. I like looking at other people's content on Instagram. That wasn't always the truth for me. So I wasn't really active on Instagram before. So I'm moving towards it because I find myself personally wanting to be a consumer on Instagram. So I think that's you got to ask yourself, like, where do I enjoy being? Because something I've always said, and this is one of those intangible sort of woo woo spiritual things too, though, is you're creating, especially when you're doing like transformational work, you're like a product based business and you're maybe you have invented this really cool widget of some sort. This may not be the case for you, but I think even probably the case for most small businesses, most solo or micro businesses is that you're creating something for you in a different form, in a different iteration. Like you're genuinely my best clients have been the people who I'm sitting there listening to them talk and thinking, gosh, I feel like I'm listening to myself talk. We're soul sisters or soul brothers or whatever it may be, soul siblings. And so again, if you're creating for another iteration of you in a different life, you in a different circumstance, you got to go to the platforms that you would be on. It's just a no-brainer. Like currently not active on LinkedIn because I don't go there. And maybe when I go there more and I start to get the vibe more, I will go there more. But for me, it's take it one step at a time, go to where you naturally gravitate to. Because the other piece of it is that you can tap into your own psychology a lot better and say, yeah, as you're scrolling Instagram, let's say for me, it's, oh, that's cool. That caught my eye. Now I can start collecting a little like swipe file of things that I think are awesome because that's going to also appeal to my person. And that's also, so you're killing two birds with one stone when you only go to the platform that you gravitate towards because you're already there. You can observe what's in your own mind, what your own kind of customer psychology is, and collect your sort of I hate to use the word arsenal, your little package of things that work for you and plan to
Mhm.
replicate those with your clients.
Yeah, for sure. And I love how you share it really is about where do you like to be and where do you like to hang out. And thanks. I feel like you almost gave me permission as well because I've been thinking I should be on LinkedIn and I just have zero desire to be on LinkedIn. And it's not where I ever go that I'm thinking I should be there. And I love that you're to start at least go where you energetically feel great. And I think what I'm getting from that too is I will produce my best content. I will be my most authentic self. I will have great energy if I'm going somewhere where I like to be. So that makes sense when you give that advice to me. And I know for myself, moving into being someone who's sharing content online, which isn't something I'm used to doing, there could be procrastination or resistance, or I tell myself these stories. And so if I lean into where I feel comfortable to start with, it's going to make me want to do it more. And so I really like that you shared that, and I feel like you gave me permission as well, so thanks for that. I'm
I love it.
curious though, I'm curious now. So let's say yeah, right? Like you got your niche, you got your messaging, you're starting to share content, you're building your confidence. Obviously, the more we do something, the more reps we put in, the better we get, right? The more confident we get. Now, the second part of this I want to ask is let's say you're doing all those things. How important is it to be building our audience at the same time? Because I'm sitting here thinking I could be doing all those things, yet if I don't have an audience that resonates with what I'm sharing, or but maybe it's just my friends and family, for example, who love me, but they have zero desire to participate in what I'm doing, it almost feels like all that effort is for naught. So how do we start to attract or build our audience intentionally?
Yeah. Okay. So that is a great, yeah. And it reminds me of something like years ago before I started my business, like it was like a side hustle, an idea like this. I'm talking back in 2008 kind of thing. And I worked with a coach who I wrote this book, which is not available anywhere now because it was a disaster. And I kept saying, don't you think that I should try to get people to know me, build a community? And he was like, no, write the book, write the book, write the book, and then you'll be able to sell it. So Of course, it did not work, and it was a disaster, and I learned a lot from the experience, of course. So yeah, your point is like so valid in that you can pour your energy into if you do that sort of silo thing. It's like going back to the tech example. If you're over here in your and tech companies do this all the time, by the way, the ones that don't succeed go into their little cocoon of all of their developers creating something amazing, but they've never shared it with there's certainly several ways to do it. The easiest, probably most obvious way is to come up with some kind of opt-in content that can appeal to, and again, it goes back to one specific thing. So let's say, for example, in my business, for instance, I'm about positioning and messaging and marketing, but I have a couple of things that are very specific, like client attraction. So getting clients, like booking your roster full of high quality clients. Like I have an opt-in around that. I have a masterclass that I taught around that. And that's one way that you can attract people is by going to one very specific part of the process of the work that you do. But I would even say you can get really creative about this because it can take a long time to create a masterclass like that. So I would even say don't wait till you've got something like that, but just create some kind of, you could do something as simple as a landing page that is like on a topic that you think might be interesting. So this is where the experimentation process can be fun and not require a ton of time. You could literally say, okay, here's my niche and and here's 5 different things that I think people, let's say it's 5 different topics that people need to know if they are my ideal client, or it's 5 different mindset shifts that they need to have, or it's a mixture of both. And now I'm going to create like 5 simple landing pages that are like, if you're interested in, I'm creating something amazing on this topic, share your interest by signing up for this. Let me know if you want to be a part of this. In other words, getting people's buy-in before you've ever created a single piece of content, even just again, just sharing like an interest list kind of thing is a way to, and it's not requiring any commitment from anyone except that, oh my gosh, yes, I want to learn about that. And then what you're going to learn too is people are more interested in this one thing than all of these 5 things. This one is the winner. And then that becomes something that I can create even just an opt-in around. And then that's something I can create my first product or program around. Of course, it depends where you are in your journey. I know you, for instance, you're an established entrepreneur, but you're just coming into the online space. So again, that could be you look at your body of work and you see these are all the things I've worked on with my clients in the past. Let me just test these out and see which ones resonate the most. Because I think the biggest mistake that people make in terms of their own, you only have so much time, right? And I've definitely done this, by the way. I'm not really done this myself a million times, is like poured 60 hours of your life into creating some piece of content, whether it's free or paid. And then you're so excited about it. It's the greatest thing ever. And then you come out and you try to get people to sign up for it. And there's just like crickets. So you need to just be nimble and just throw stuff out there and get people's micro commitments to things that you think might be interesting and discover as you go what actually is interesting to your audience. And in that same way, you'll be building community as well.
Oh, that's such good advice. I'm just laughing as you're sharing because I've done that. I've spent hours and hours and hours creating something before I've even looked within my audience if it's something they want. I decided for them, oh, they're gonna want this, right? And and then no response, right? And so it's just ask people what they want. Ask, you'll save yourself a lot of time. I really like that strategy, right? And then also too, it is like testing and just checking out different strategies in a way where it's not once again, time consuming and all encompassing, yet where I can start to learn what is going to be best for my niche audience. What do they actually want to know? And then I do have an arsenal of tools that I can cater towards that. So don't create the tool, put it into something first, right? Go and talk to my audience, talk to the people, ask questions. Not, I'm just thinking of myself. I'm speaking on behalf of me right now, but I'm sure people can resonate. Don't decide for people what they need, ask them. That's awesome. I love that advice.
Yeah, and there's a really key distinction that I want to make is that when you ask, there's a couple of different people often ask by surveys and interest and here, let me share the topics with you and you tell me what you're interested in kind of thing. But to me, the really important distinction is if you can get people to sign up for something, even if it's not available, but you create a simple landing page that says, here's the topic, sign up for when this thing is ready. If you can get people's email addresses, you have a much stronger idea than I actually taught this years ago in a marketing class that I used to teach that was all about because I read this book on it too about neuromarketing. The book I think is called Biology, Buyology, and it was all about I was absolutely fascinated to learn that when they do surveys of they would do surveys of, for instance, people like their show watching habits on TV, if they were going to bring let's say, a UK special into the US. And they would survey the audience and they would find that people did not answer. So they would hook them up to EEGs, brain, like measuring their brain waves. And they would find literally people just did not answer surveys correctly or not. I wouldn't say they wouldn't answer them honestly. And it's not that people are trying to be dishonest, but a survey is, oh, let me answer these questions the right way. Or, yeah, that seems interesting, but it's very, very different to say, I'm going to give you my email address or I'm going to give you $1 deposit or something like that. If you want to take it that far or some kind of commitment, again, a micro commitment that you get from people is going to be so much more impactful than just asking. So I think that important distinction cannot be emphasized enough because I do see people thinking, oh, let me ask my audience. And then they just literally ask their audience, and people just won't tell you. They will not literally tell you how they're actually going to act until they're actually acting, if that makes sense. So it's getting people
It
to
totally
act,
does. It,
take
and
some kind of
that's,
action.
yeah, I love how you word it like a micro commitment. Yeah, like people will follow that more than not. And that's a beautiful distinction. And once again, saves time and gets us more, it gets me more of what I want if I'm looking at it from my business perspective, which is building my audience and building my community so that I can give value. And it gives the person who's choosing into that micro commitment more of what they want to, because now they're moving towards the things that they desire. And that's a great distinction. I love that. And so I'm just curious, we've got to start wrapping up soon yet. What would be, and you've shared so many great tips, Helen, you are great at helping entrepreneurs scale, right? So take all of this guidance that you're giving on this episode and scaling within their business. Do you have one or two tips that just come to mind that you're like, I would love the listeners to know this about now that you've started to master these skills? How do you then scale your business with it?
Okay, so that's a really juicy question. And I know we're going to wrap up, so I won't wax on about it. But I will say this that I believe that most small businesses and again, micro businesses, your path to scaling is not going to be building a huge community. So it's the opposite of what people often think of as scaling. It's literally going to be thinking about creative ways that you can create and drive more value through the more intimate containers that you have. And then basically charge appropriately for that value and just increase your so for instance when people think about scaling they think oh I've got to create this huge program, I've got to reach like a high volume of people. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm definitely not saying if that's what you want to do and your heart is set on having a huge community and you want to have a huge audience, go for it. But to me, a saner perspective is to say, coming from that space of I'm helping a very, very specific person, how can I drive even more value to that person? So if I think of every person who comes into my business more as a client than a customer, even if I don't, or I should say as a member of my community versus just a customer that's passing through, that is your scalable strategy, is thinking like, how can I keep that same person in my world for longer by giving them more value and then extending them to different tiers of service? And even that, I wouldn't even just say charge more, but also have a continuous level of service that you're offering someone. So maybe if they come in at a low level, then they go to a really high level, and then they go to a maintenance level. And bringing people through that customer journey. And then your maintenance level is where you're having dependable, consistent income. But you're again not thinking in terms of, oh, I've got to reach more and more people and have my audience huge. I've had clients over the years, absolutely, who have ginormous businesses and they are literally exhausted. And it's not even like they're taking home at the end of the day even as much pay as some of my clients who've had much smaller businesses with only a few clients who are literally taking more in their take home income more than those people with the huge audiences, and they're a lot less exhausted. So I hope that's making sense. I know that's a huge answer to that question, but I really feel like unscale to scale. My philosophy, go small to go big.
No, it's great. And I know we could probably have a whole episode on that topic, right? So you answered it great because we literally could spend another hour just talking about how to scale your business effectively. And so great advice. And okay, so Helen, I do have three more questions I want to ask. Yet before we do, are you able to share like where can people find you? Because let's say people are listening in my audience and they're getting a lot of value, which I know they are because I am. How do they find you on social media? Speaking about the online marketplace, and what do you have coming up in the new year? You mentioned a couple things, but that people can plug into.
Yeah. So you can find me at helenhuntermackenzie.com. It's Mackenzie. So not MC. So yeah, they can find me there. They can find me on Facebook. I think I'm pretty much the only Helen Hunter Mackenzie. So even if you just Googled it, you're going to find me on both Facebook and Instagram, probably a lot more on Instagram, like I said. And then, yeah, I do suggest that for people who want to dive in at a really like low commitment kind of thing is to try my daily 8 practice because it's like literally the foundation. It's the woo woo, it's the spiritual foundation for everything else that all of my work rests on. So if I know I just said, don't worry about being an influencer or the no trust, but if you resonate with me, if you like my personality and you like everything that I've been talking about, you're going to like that because it's one of those things that that again serves as the foundation for everything else. But then I also have a masterclass on my Thrive method for attracting clients, which is prominent on my website. So yeah, pretty easy to find me and get further help. And the Thrive masterclass, by the way, is also free. So free ways to get in my world.
Oh my gosh, amazing. So everybody go and check out Helen, right? Everything that you're sharing, there's so much value that I know is jam-packed in there. And so just appreciate you being on. And I have three last quick
Thanks.
questions. So I always like to ask my guests these three questions. And so you created a certain level of success up until now. And so I'm curious, what is your version of success today? How would you define success?
Oh, wow. Okay. I would say, like I said earlier, is like literally just that you feel things are clicking in your life and you don't worry about what anybody else on the outside thinks about your life, about your brand, if we're talking about going out into the world and creating an audience, like literally what feels good to you, where you're essentially staying in your lane and you're happy with your results. If that's the case for you, I consider you successful. That's what I consider for myself. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. I like it. And then what would you say would be three tips to unleash someone's inner greatness?
Ooh, what a great question. I think I would go back to be courageous, be bold about who you are, be unapologetic is probably a better way of saying it. Be unapologetic about who you are and don't worry about what anybody else thinks of you because honestly, I hate to say this, but some people already don't like you, like in your personal life and whatever. I know that's true of me. Who's universally liked by anyone. So don't worry about people liking you or people approving of you. Be bold and courageous about who you are. I would say dig deep into your specific genius. Think about the things that you are almost the things you take for granted that you think are so easy for you. Realize those are not easy for other people. Understand that if it's writing or communication for me, for instance, is I just assume everybody knows how to do that and people don't. So own that. Like really stand strong in your genius and your power. And then what else? Consistently showing up for yourself is, and this, I don't mean this in that like toxic personal development sort of way. It just even in the commitments that you make to yourself that nobody else can see that are like literally, if all I'm going to do, if I am working on that piece of content, I've asked people what they want, they've told me they love this thing, it's still going to take me like 30 or 60 hours or whatever to create this thing. Consistently show up for yourself,
Mhm.
impress yourself with the level of action and consistency and commitment that you have and devotion that you have towards yourself and your business. Yeah, I think those would be my three
I
tips.
like that. Yeah, impress yourself. I love that. Okay, last question. What is one call to action you would give the listeners when they hop off this episode to implement this week?
Ooh, what a great question. Yeah, I would say if you do nothing else, ask yourself that question that we talked about in the episode about if I could only help one kind of person and I could only get paid after I got results for them, take the time to answer that question. Who would that person be? What kinds of characteristics would they have to have? What would I help them do? What sort of point A to point B objectives would I help them do? And it might be somebody that you've already worked with. If you can think of somebody that you've worked with that's that perfect person, but take the time to write that out because so often we just think about it in our head and we go, oh, that's a great question. But really get that piece of paper out and answer those questions for yourself because you might be amazed at what actually comes up when you start putting it in black and white. And there's something so powerful in wrangling the mind to put things in black and white. So, yeah, I would say, again, answer that one question and see where that takes you.
Awesome. I love it. Helen, I can see why you're an expert at literally supporting entrepreneurs and scaling their business in the way that you do with your gifts. And I took so many notes just about how to position myself online with the tips that you gave and carve out my niche and your guidance. And this has been a really impactful time together. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your time today. And just excited that we got to meet and are now becoming friends. So thanks for being here.
Me too. Likewise. Thank you for having me. It's really been a great conversation. I've loved it.
Awesome. Have a good day, everybody.
Hi, I'm Tanya, and this is Julie, and we are the founders of Coach Core, your all in one solution for building and scaling a successful coaching business.
At Coach Core, we provide you with everything you need in one place. You can house your courses, manage memberships, run email campaigns, and create stunning websites and funnels, all with our easy to use platform.
And it's not just about the software. We offer built-in coaching and mentorship, helping you implement best practices from certified NLP practitioners and story brand coaches. And that's just scratching the surface of what's inside.
And that's why we're excited to sponsor the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast with Kelley Beveridge. Kelley is a thought leader who inspires and elevates entrepreneurs worldwide.
We believe in the power of community and continuous learning, and this podcast is a fantastic resource for any coach looking to truly grow their practice.
So join us on this journey. Tune into the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast for insights and inspiration, and visit Coach Core to transform your coaching business today.
Coach Core, your path to coaching success.